We need to see sufficiently down the track, especially when we're crossing an intersection, a railroad crossing without a gate. We want to have plenty of time to cross that intersection. We don't want to be cowboys. Even though we know it's a long train, it's better be safe than be sorry. This is the site triangle, and take into consideration how much distance we need. We can calculate that and make sure that we are able to avoid the obstruction and that we have the proper distance so that we can make the proper decision at that crossing. And of course it's wise to stop some distance, not at the crossing, but some distance before, and generally 15 feet is a good recommended distance. Here's another chart that gives you train speed and sight distances and also to better understand what that takes. Basically, I just want to give you perspective in terms of what is involved in terms of speed and distance. If you're going 10 miles an hour, and you're going to need, in 1 second, you're going to move 15 feet. So if you're going 100 miles an hour, in 1 second, you're going 150 feet. So you can imagine how fast, let's say an Amtrak train going 125 miles an hour, you can guess how much the train moves in a second. And, a second is just a snap of the finger. And I show it in both ways, both in seconds and in feet. But you just have to multiply, if it's 60 miles an hour, you multiply these numbers by 6. This is the concept of perception reaction time, and what happens in that split second that a vehicle driver or a pedestrian or a train needs to take into consideration to make a decision. A lot of steps, and all this takes place in a matter of a second. The difference between a pedestrian and a vehicle is a pedestrian needs less time to react to a train coming than a vehicle. A vehicle needs a lot more time to make a decision and to react and get out of the way. A pedestrian only needs to react in a fractions of a second to step out of the way of a train, because the track distance is, the distance between the rails is maybe 9 feet, and they need to, if they're in the middle of the track, they need to get out, move 4.5 feet, where the vehicle has to move, 15 to 20 feet or more to get out of the way of the train. This is a little further description on perception reaction time. Even if we have a good process, this doesn't guarantee that there'll be a positive result. Some of the things that go into that perception reaction time, which could be around a second or less, is experience. You may make a misinterpretation, a visual error, fatigue, various other situations can increase that second to multiple seconds, make it a situation even more concerning. How fast can one detect something? No matter what the task is, it also depends somewhat on one's experience. The more experience we have, the better we can react and respond to an unexpected event. Every time I read a report about an accident, whether it's the train operator or the vehicle operator, both of them always state that upon seeing the other, they immediately apply the brakes. Well, if we recall this previous discussion I had about perception and reaction time, and nothing happens immediately. This perception reaction time has to take place before the brakes can be applied. So it's impossible to react instantaneously. There's a perception reaction time which could be as little, maybe 0.6 seconds to 2 or more seconds, depending on the circumstances. And the train operator has a lot of work to do, and information to interpret, recognize situations. It's a very busy job, and even the vehicle operator has a very busy job when they come to a crossing. Most of it takes place from experience, but any failure or degradation of their abilities at this juncture point can result in an accident. Having your attention focused on the circumstances at hand is very, very important. And there's always the question, how many tasks can any operator of a train or a vehicle, how many tasks can they do at one time? How rapidly can an individual switch from one task to another? and how widely can they deploy their attention over the visual field. Not only does this apply to the train operator, it equally applies to the pedestrian and also the vehicle operator. And this is the ability of any individual to apply their attention to the task on hand. I'm not going to get into too much detail. I leave this for your own time to take a look at it further. But this is the different types of categories that come into play in terms of operator and safety, and I'll leave that for you to look at at another time. There are many circumstances which can cause human error. Lack of attention, inability to see or hear something, inadequate knowledge for the task at hand, a breach of the rules and regulations or the laws or the traffic rules, using a wrong procedure in a given circumstances, and sometimes all of us know what we talk about slip or lap, an unintended action or a mental passing. Many of us have ridden on highways and we're driving along and we can't remember how we got to where we are because we've had this mental lapse. We don't know what causes it, but it takes place, unfortunately. And of course, we all tend to push ourselves a little too far and we get into this fatigue mode where we get tired, our eyes are getting groggy, and we really shouldn't be driving or operating a vehicle or a train. And there are many, many accidents that cause because of this fatigue issue. It's important that every operator be able to control their attention and apply their resources so that they can do the best job to do whatever is needed to be done to cross that particular crossing. And we can do the best, as engineers, we can do the best we can to make do what we call safety by design. We can do everything to make sure that the design is the best, but if everybody doesn't do their job, the best design will never solve all problems. It all depends upon all players participating in doing their job equally. And of course, the best and the first level of safety is removing the hazardous condition in the first place, be it the design of the crossing, conditions that might detrimentally affect either the train operator, the vehicle operator, or the pedestrian. If we take away the hazardous conditions in the first place, many of our accidents will go away. Everybody asks the question, what are the standards and practices? Is this the best that we can do? Unfortunately, standards and practices aren't the best we can do because the ultimate standard is the result of a consensus. I serve on several standards committees, the National Standards Institute and the American Standards and Testing Material International and another testing group. And every time a standard comes up, we may give our input, it gets incorporated into the standard, and then we vote. In order to get a consensus vote, everybody has to agree, or at least a majority, and a minimum number of people have to vote and agree. And if the standard is set too high, we find that the standard will fall, and we don't have any standard at all. So you have to bear in mind that a standard is a consensus. It may not be the best way of doing something in particular, but it's the best we can accomplish. It's the same thing as we see what happens with Congress on their attempt to pass a law or regulation. They got to get the Democrats and Republicans to agree together. Same thing is with a standard.